going on, guys? Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode here at Grizzly Talk Podcast. Got your co-host here at Mike on the mic. Got Mr. Alvarez with us.
David Alvarez F on Instagram. Underscore. Don't forget the underscore.
And we got a special guest with us, Mr. Liudynasty.
Yep.
Mr. Austin
Liudynasty on everything. I'm stoked to be here, bro. It's cool to see you again.
Yeah.
It's cool to be in town, visit my old friends. We just got back from the range, shooting some guns, shooting a little bit of everything, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, thank you for coming on. I know we've been talking about it for a little bit, man. You want to talk about a little bit about what you do? Let me just get this mic.
Go ahead, bro. Yeah, let's adjust this.
Maybe.
I'll lean closer to it if I have to.
Yeah.
So I guess by trade, I started off as an MMA fighter, and now I've gone through the process of trying to transition and get more into the stunts industry, because I feel like, most people have a college degree, or you go to college, you try to learn something. I've spent, 20 years of my life, 20 plus years now, just learning martial arts. So I always think to myself, that's kind of my education, there's not a lot of things that people do where they dedicate so much of their life to one thing. And that's something that I've always been passionate about. That's something that I spent a lot of my life doing. It's something that I love doing. And I found a way, I feel to monetize that and to take that knowledge from fighting and martial arts and training, but now apply it to something new, because in the film industry, there's a lot of jobs, there's a lighting department, there's the people that handle the cameras and all that. But in action movies, there's guys that have to choreograph the fight scenes, or even more fun is being in the scene and having to do the stunts and having to be the bad guy and take hits, boom, okay, you fall down. There's so much to learn, I feel in that realm. And it's just kind of cool to take that knowledge of martial arts and apply it in a different way. Because in what I do traditionally, MMA, you're trying to learn what's the most effective way to fight someone with your bare hands. I only have these tools. I have no weapons. So how do I beat somebody, using strikes? Or how do I take someone down and strangle them, or, choke them or whatever? So now it's okay, let's adapt that to film. How can I make a fight scene look entertaining, but maybe also realistic? And there's so many different styles of action movies nowadays that you see. American movies, it's quick cuts, everything's zoomed in really close and it's very theatrical. And older Asian movies are more a wide shot and you're showing everything. You're really giving the performer their room to do the whole choreography. Mm-hmm. And I feel it's just cool to kind of, I guess use the knowledge that I have and try to transition it into something else.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've seen you've been doing a lot of projects and things like that, the short films and everything.
Short films, just, small stuff like that. I feel I'm fortunate that, living in SoCal, I've networked a lot with a lot of very talented people, in different areas of the film industry. I have a good friend that, he does lighting, he does editing. I have a good friend that, she owns her own production company, Fudigo Films. And so everyone's kind of doing their own thing. And I feel it helps me to learn from everybody too, because I understand it from one side of the equation, which is the performing and the stunts and all that. But you got to also understand when you're doing stuff like that, what is the angle for the camera person, and how easy is this going to be for the person to edit it, so it kind of blows my mind how different creative people can come together to make something. And it makes me watch movies now, especially action movies, and I respect it a lot more, because I know maybe John Wick or something, a 1-minute fight scene, bro, that probably took, I don't know, multiple days to shoot a couple minute fight scene, between the choreography, between setting up the lighting for each take, between oh, okay, that hit didn't really read. And in action films, the hit doesn't read means if you were to punch somebody in the face and you're getting it on film, you of course don't punch someone for real, right? You punch right in front of their face to where it's called stacking. So if the camera's here and someone's punch is coming across my face, it's got to go in front of my face and then I react. But if it goes like this and it misses, that's a miss. It doesn't read. So you got to do it again. And in a fight scene, everything has to come together for it to be believable and for it to look good, to go to production, go to the audience and all that,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts, bro. It's insane.
And putting all that together.
Yeah. And it's I don't know. It's like I said, it's important to understand things from every perspective,
Mm-hmm. So to give some background, what at what age did you start like training martial arts? I think you started with Taekwondo.
Taekwondo, yes. I started with Taekwondo.
How old are you?
I was 7 years old, but
Wow.
man, I always tell people like my training started like way before that because I was probably 4 or 5 years old when I watched like Bruce Lee movies and Jackie Chan movies. And Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is like one of my favorite martial arts films. But like I remember as a kid, like my dad introduced me to Bruce Lee, like showing me all the old Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan films. I used to watch them in my living room. I used to live in Tracy, California. I used to watch movies. I would fast forward to the fight scenes. I would turn on like my ceiling fan in the living room because I knew I was going to get sweaty doing this. And I would just like whatever the actors on screen or stunt actors are doing, like I would copy the moves. Like I would just copy the kick. Like, oh, that's a cool kick that Bruce Lee did. Like I would just copy it. I didn't know like what I was doing, but I was trying to like emulate what they were doing, you know? So I would beg my parents, like, please, like, put me in karate, put me in karate. I didn't know what any martial arts were, so I would just say, put me in karate. Mm-hmm. My dad, he trained Taekwondo when he was younger. He got his black belt when he was like 16, 17, 18 years old. But he's like, okay, like, I was begging them. Finally, when I was 7 years old, they put me in Taekwondo. So I trained at a small gym in Tracy, California called Studio Kicks. And like from then on, like I loved it. And I felt like I could never get enough of it because like at that time, like a lot of gyms, like you would pay a certain fee and okay, you can like, this is your schedule. You train Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The classes that I did as a kid were only 45 minutes. And like, I felt like that was so little time. I was always itching for more and I was always wanting to like, to do more too. So like me and my dad at home, he had Taekwondo paddles and we would practice at home too. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I would do extra credit with him and like, he would go over sparring tactics with me. Like he taught me the spinning back kick, the spinning heel kick, the hook kick, like all those kicks that I use, like that I used in my fighting career. Like he kind of taught me those because the gym I was at, it was a pretty good gym. It was decent, but they didn't really teach you. They weren't focused on like the sparring tactics. Like my parents would always joke about it. It was like a black belt factory, you know. It's like a lot of Taekwondo gyms are kind of like you put your kid in it just to kind of put them in a sport. It kind of eats up some time. Okay, my kid's off doing something, but they're not actually trying to train your kid to compete and like do competitions, you know? So that gym wasn't really a specialty in that, but that's kind of like where I got my start. And I feel like also it kind of blends in with the stunts too, because that was my first experience kind of seeing how martial arts could be used for like show and entertainment in addition to like practicality. So that gym, Studio Kicks, they had something called the demo team, which is where it was a team of guys that were like really good at performing like forms, like doing like flips, using like weapons and stuff. And they would travel around town and like do these performances to kind of like advertise the gym. So there was like a demo team, which is like one tier. Then there was like the next level up. You had to be like 18 or older. It was called the X team or Extreme team or something. And I remember I used to watch those guys perform like during all the belt promotion ceremonies. And they would be doing some crazy stuff. And I was like, dude, I wish I could learn how to do that one day, you know, and like learning the weapons and stuff. And like my first experience, like doing like fight choreography, I remember, I think I ended up trying out for the demo team. I got into it when I was like, I think 10 or 11 years old. And only once I did this, but I had to take one of my teammates and we had to choreograph like a fight scene, but like make it look really cool. So I remember like doing that as a kid. I had so much fun doing it. I'm like, man, like I wonder if I could like make something out of this one day. But that was like just one little speck of time, and like I never ended up using it until like now when I got into, you know, stunts and all that
in there,
which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Do you think it helped you once you started or when did you start transitioning into MMA and wanting to fight and learning? Because you learned, was it Taekwondo or kick or not?
After Taekwondo, yeah. So
Muay Thai?
Taekwondo. So I trained in Tracy like until I got my black belt. I think I got my black belt when I was like 12 years old, and then you know my parents divorced when I was really young, but my mom ended up moving to Fresno like when I was junior high, like 7th grade. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I moved over to Fresno. We were at Granite Ridge together, and I did football my first year because, you know, back in Tracy, the public school system, they didn't really have sports in the public schools unless it was high school. Like when I moved to Clovis, it was like mind blowing to me that you could be in elementary school, like 4th grade, and like do a sport, because that's what I wanted to do for so long. But there was nothing besides like club sports where I lived. So I didn't really have any experience playing sports. I just had martial arts. Sorry, what was your question again?
When did you start transitioning into UFC? No, but you're
yeah.
you're going on the right track.
So seventh grade I moved. I did football 1 year, and I was just like, I felt like I was kind of like losing my way almost, you know, because I was like, man, I love doing martial arts, but now I'm just doing sports, and it doesn't fill that void, you know, as much. And I sucked at football for one. I was like the second like smallest kid on the team. I was definitely the worst kid on the team, right? I played running back. Just I dreaded football practice, bro. Like I remember after school, just like I had Mrs. Liudynasty for English class, and I remember like purposely like not doing my homework so I would get after school detention, because if I had after school detention, I could skip football practice. I wouldn't have to go. And if I go to detention, bro, I could do my homework. I'm there for 2 hours. I could bump out my homework. No practice. I go home. I'm happy. Like I'm happy I missed practice, you know. But fast forward, 8th grade, my younger cousin Hector, he and his younger brothers, they'd been wrestling at Fugman, which is like an elementary school around the area. And they started like very young, like 3rd or 4th grade. And I went to like a couple of their like wrestling tournaments and stuff. And like I would see videos of it. And they always would tell me like, dude, you should do wrestling. You should do wrestling. And even my kickboxing. Okay, so yeah, let me rewind a little bit. So 7th grade, when I moved to Fresno, I ended up finding another gym right after football season called Sunnyside Taekwondo. And it's one of the best like Taekwondo gyms. I think it's the top Taekwondo gym in California. It's one of the best in the United States for competition. Like if you want to do like competitions like sparring and stuff, it's one of the best. But I ended up going there. I started training there. I'm like, man, I'm finally doing what I want to do again. I was so happy about that. And then like twice a week, they would have this guy come in who was my first kickboxing coach, but he would teach Muay Thai. It was
Huey, or what was his name?
It was Huey. Yeah, Huey, Baby Huey, I would call him. Shout out to Baby Huey. And then this guy named Bruce Lee, who is Caitlin Lee's uncle, right?
I remember
Caitlin Lee's
that,
uncle, yeah. So them two would come in twice a week and teach us Muay Thai. And I started like kind of falling in love with that too, because I didn't really have like any like good striking with my hands, because Taekwondo is like all kicks. It's all kicks. Like when you spar, like if you do a competition, Taekwondo, you only get scored on throwing kicks really. Like I think they've changed it over the years, but you're mainly like fighting someone with just kicks. That's what it is. So they came in, they started teaching Muay Thai. I started learning Muay Thai, which is like punches. You learn clinch, you learn elbows and knees, and you learn like to kick with your shin instead of your foot. And like that was like a big learning curve for me. Like I already know how to kick, but to aim with a different part of your body, like it kind of changes the range a little bit. But I started doing Muay Thai, and then my kickboxing instructor, Bruce Lee, he would tell me like, hey, like, you know, like I feel like you could do decent MMA. You should learn wrestling. You know, Clovis is really good at wrestling. You should try to, you know, take up wrestling at your school. And like him just telling me that and planting that seed in my brain, like you should do this, you should do this. I was like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. You know, I'll give it a shot. Why not? And also that year when I was in 8th grade, or the following year in 8th grade, my younger cousin Hector was coming in. He was going to wrestle at the same school as me. I thought that was just super cool. I'm like, okay, cool. We could be on the same team together wrestling. Yeah. So I'm like, you know, I'll try it. And I loved it. I felt like I wish I had moved to Clovis earlier and started earlier, because I feel like me starting late, most kids in Clovis, they start wrestling at like 4th grade, 5th grade. I started in 8th grade. So I'm already like 3 years behind. And I felt like I loved it so much. I was catching up to a lot of the kids. I qualified, I remember, for one of the hardest junior high wrestling tournaments called TOC, Tournament of Champions. I think it's in Sacramento, California. But I remember like, you know, qualifying for that my first year wrestling. I was varsity my first year wrestling. I remember I had to, in order to be varsity, because I couldn't beat the guy in my weight class, I moved up 2 weight classes and challenged for that weight class. And I ended up getting varsity for that spot. But like, yeah, like that's hard, you know, to do in wrestling. You know how hard it is, like to go up 2 weight classes. 100%. But I'm like, fuck, I want to be varsity. So I moved up 2 weight classes just to, you know, wrestle varsity on the duels and stuff. But yeah, like, so from there, it just kind of kept going. I did wrestling. And then when we got to high school, I was still continuing wrestling, but then I would still, after school, like, I started training at a proper Muay Thai gym. The first gym I trained at, that was like a Muay Thai gym where people actually fought out of, was Fresno Fight Club. And I remember I was 16 years old at the time, I think. And everyone that I trained with was like older than 18, like 20-year-olds, you know? So I'm sparring with those guys. And that really helped like elevate me and push me. And I felt like like I was starting to like find my path, like something that I was meant to do, you know? So that's kind of where it all started, to be honest. Like just like
Well,
just
that's
the
where
inspiration.
we met during when we were wrestling at. Well, that's not where
We met before, yeah.
But that's where we became good friends, basically.
Yes, at wrestling. I convinced him like, bro, wrestle, bro, you should wrestle, and then
because I sucked at soccer. I did soccer my freshman year. It's terrible. And then terrible. And then I was pretty decent at wrestling because
you were hella good at wrestling.
Yeah,
you were
I made varsity my first year too, and that was in like 10th grade.
Yeah,
sophomore year.
You ended up going pro?
I did end up going pro for MMA.
Yeah.
Yes, I
You want
did,
to talk about your first fight and how that got set up?
First fight. So my first fight. So usually MMA you fight amateur first. So let me like fill in the spaces a little bit.
Yeah.
So basically during high school, you know, I'm training, I'm doing Muay Thai, I want to fight and stuff. My parents like, they don't really want me to fight and stuff. They want me to like go to college and stuff. And, you know, I'm trying to get good grades. I ended up getting like a decent like 3-point whatever GPA. I wasn't like trying to take all the AP classes, get 4-point this. I'm like, I would always joke with my parents, you know, like if I get like a 4-point, you know, whatever, like I'm just wasting my life, you know, like just studying. I'm in the books. I'm not enjoying like my youth, you know. So I got a decent GPA. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll go to San Jose State. My dad's an engineer in Silicon Valley. So I'm like, you know what? I'll get an engineering degree and then hopefully I could get a job like in my dad's field that maybe could help me get a job. And I don't know. I just kind of thought maybe I'd be happy like getting a job, making good money, and like just be cool with that. You know, I thought maybe the money would make me happy. And so I get to college. I live on campus the first year. I'm doing mechanical engineering, which is a whole lot of math. You know I'm horrible at math, bro. Like math is by far my worst subject. Like I kind of enjoy it. Like I enjoy like in math they teach you something. This is the way to do it. This is how you get the answer. That's it. There's no gray area. You know, it's black and white.
Yeah.
You either got it wrong or you got it right. And my first year at college, bro, it's like so hard. I'm doing calculus. Like I'm in the library with my friends and I'm like having them like teach me and stuff. I'm like, bro, like I don't get this question. Like, can you help me please? They're like showing me how to do it. One of my friends, Timmy, like I remember he was tutoring me in the library at San Jose State. And I'm like, bro, I don't get this. He shows me how to do it. And he's like, okay, now you try it. Like, what's the first step? I do the first step. And I'm like, bro, what's the second step? He's like, bro, Austin, I swear to God, like, if you're fucking with me right now, like, you're pissing me off, bro. Like, just, like, I feel like you're playing a prank on me. Like, are you serious? I'm like, bro, I'm dead serious. Like, I don't get this. Like, it goes one in one ear, out the other, you know?
Yeah.
But I realized pretty quick, I'm like, there's no way. I'm struggling my first year in college. There's no way I can graduate and, like, work my whole life in a job like this. Like, I just kind of, like, had a turning point right there. And, like, my freshman year of college too, like that was I was like just not happy, you know, like I felt like I was like just straying away from my purpose. Like I wasn't doing anything I was interested in. I wasn't doing martial arts. I had no time. I was living on campus. I couldn't really train at any proper MMA gyms when I was living on campus. So yeah, after that, I dropped out of San Jose State. I went to San Jose City College. And then I tried to switch degrees. I'm like, maybe I'd enjoy it more if I got like a kinesiology degree or like sports nutrition or like working with athletes. Cause I love athletics. I love like, you know, fitness and all that stuff. So maybe if I go down that path, that'll be like a little bit easier for me, you know, maybe that'll make me happy, you know?
Yeah.
And ultimately I started doing that. I ended up during City College, that's when I ended up taking my first fight. It kind of happened because I started training whenever I would come to Fresno and visit family. I started training at this gym called Buhawi Muay Thai under Jasper Tiaba. And he's a guy that's been known he used to train a lot of the fighters at AK, like back in the day, like the OG guys like Luke Rockhold, Daniel Cormier, Cain Velasquez. He was the main striking coach there, but he ended up moving to Fresno and then he opened a small gym in Fresno. So I started training there and they were like a small group of guys, but he really put time into all his fighters. And I kind of was I would go there and train and stuff. And like, when you're like a new guy at a gym, like the coaches don't really notice you unless you keep showing up, you keep putting in the work and like you start improving. Then they start to notice you. Then they start to put time into you. So I just made sure that I was like consistent. I would keep showing up. I would really give like practice, like my everything and try to really perform when we spar and stuff. He ended up like taking me under his wing. He started like really working with me on like certain things. I took my first fight when I was, I think 20 years old. So it was December 2017, I think it was. I fought amateur for 559 fights.
I was there
The
at your
first fight. Yeah,
yeah,
you were there. The first fight I had was at Tower Theater in Fresno. And it's crazy, right? Because it's a theater in Fresno, but they put the cage on top of the stage. So the cage is hella small. And like when you're a striker, you want to have space to move around and to not let the guy get close to you and like wrestle you or put you up against the cage. Mm-hmm. And I knew amateur that you weigh in the same day as the fight. So we weigh in at like 10 a.m. to like 12 p.m. But then the event starts for the fights at like 5 p.m. So you have 5, 6, maybe 7 hours to rehydrate. And if you're cutting a ton of weight, like that's not enough time to put all that water back in your body. It's also bad for your brain to like take punches when you're dehydrated. So I'm like, you know what? In high school, I wrestled 126. So I thought, okay, I'll fight flyweight 125. But then I realized, okay, you know what? Like, that's probably not healthy. I was walking around at the time at like 145. So I was like, okay, I'll fight at 135. That way I only have to cut like 10 pounds. I'll just eat clean, cut like 8 to 10 pounds of water. It should be easy. I got matched up with this guy who's a 145er, but he was going to come down to 135. I show up at weigh-ins and he was 7 pounds overweight.
I remember that.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, do you still want to do the fight? I'm like, well, yeah, I trained, I believe I could beat this guy. So I accepted it anyways. We ended up fighting. He was a BJJ blue belt. I didn't really have too much jiu-jitsu experience yet. I had wrestling from high school, but I found that like wrestling, like the pure sport of wrestling it's a little bit different than like using wrestling and MMA, just because the entries are different. Like we're not starting hunched over. You're not starting with the collar tie. You're not starting like close to the guy already. You're far away. You have to find a way to mask your takedown entry with punches. And MMA is like very high risk, like if I just from here, if we're at space and I just go to shoot and I duck my head, like I might duck into a knee, a kick, a punch, like it's very dangerous. Like it's different the way you shoot. It's different the way you defend takedowns too. Because if I could defend takedowns like while punching somebody, like if you think about it, if you had strikes in wrestling, it changes the game so much more.
Yeah, 100%.
It changes the game a lot. So my first fight was crazy because the guy was pushing me against the fence the whole time. And I remember the only thing I thought to do was just, stuff his head and just, elbow his body. Like that's all I was doing that fight. But he ended up kind of getting tired as the rounds went on. I kind of weathered him a little bit. I ended up winning the fight by decision, but at the end of the fight, I had gotten top of him. I was going ground and pound like crazy. Like that feeling was surreal. Like being in the cage the first time, like when like all the lights are on you, like I told you this, like that feeling of like when you're in the cage and you look around the crowd and everyone's looking at you, it just feels like a dream. Like you're never really in a place in life where you're like in public, but like you look around and like everyone's looking at you. Like it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of anxiety. But the crazy thing is too, like when I was fighting, my first like 5 or 6 fights, like I had very little nerves. Like I'd be in the locker room, just like believe in my head, like there's no way this guy can beat me. Like he can't even touch me. Like I trained too hard. Like I didn't have like too much nerves at all. And I feel like it was just kind of like weird to me that I didn't have nerves,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my first fight. That's how I got started. And then like we just kind of got the ball rolling from there. I think the first year that I started fighting, I think I had 5 fights in 1 year, which is a decent amount of fights because usually you want like after a fight, you want some time to recover, to unwind, to heal your body. And then you want to at least usually do like a 1 to 2 month camp before your next fight. Mm-hmm. But my coach was kind of like, after my first fight, he's like, okay, cool, let's keep going. I found you another matchup, in San Francisco or whatever. So I think after my first fight, I fought again 3 weeks later or something. It was less than a month, bro.
Yeah.
Less than a month, and I went down to 125 that time. But it was only because that card that I fought on was a Pro-Am card, meaning you have amateurs and pro guys, but if you have pro guys get 24-hour weigh-ins. So I was able to cut to 125, weigh in, boom, the next day I'm 145. All I did was eat pasta, salt my pasta, like spaghetti, like drink a lot of water, and I gained all the weight back. But yeah, so I just kind of went crazy, like right from the beginning. I was like, if I'm going to do this, like I'm going to go all the way. And I remember like the thing that would really like motivate me through the hardest practices, because my coach Jasper, he was really old school with it. Like we had grueling like 2-hour workouts. We would start our practice with like a 2 to 3 mile run. We'd come back. Okay, that was warm up. Now we're going to stretch. Now we're going to hit the bag a little bit. We'd hit pads. We would condition more, and then we'd spar when we're really tired. And like so many of those times, he's like trying to break us. He's trying to break me as a fighter. He's trying to break me like with the conditioning. And I remember just having these moments like, you know what, like, I don't care how painful this is. I don't care how uncomfortable this is, but this is what I want to be doing. I'd rather suffer doing this. I'd rather like be in hell doing this than like live comfortably like in an office, like making tons of money. Like that's just not going to make me happy.
I remember you said something to me one time while you were training me.
Yeah.
And you said you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Literally that has stayed and stuck with me for a long time.
Has it really? Like,
yeah.
you just saying that?
Yeah, literally just that thing. I'm like, that's true, because you know, that's where you thrive, that's where you grow. So it's like, if you could get comfortable being uncomfortable,
absolutely,
then,
bro. Yeah.
you know, and you can apply it not only to literally when you're dead tired doing something like that, right? Versus like, you know, just the day-to-day things that we have going on when you're growing or things are changing and things like that. Of course.
Was there ever a time that you wanted to quit?
Yeah, there's tons of times. I think as a fighter and also amateur, because there's not as much pressure on you, like, whenever you lose, you're like, damn, maybe this is not for me. Like, I don't really need to be doing this. Like, I could get a job if I wanted to, you know? You always have those thoughts. And I feel like fighting is so different from a traditional sport because, like, if I lose a basketball game or a football game, it's like, okay, no problem. Like, we're a team, you know, we're going to get better. We'll go again next week, you know? In fighting, it's like the consequences are so much more drastic. And, like, when you lose a fight, like, especially as a man, I feel like it's the most demoralizing feeling you could feel. Like, the most depressed I've been in my life has been after losing fights. Never really been from anything else, you know? But it's like, after losing, you have all these demons in your head. You have all these, like, things that you're battling. Like, man, maybe this is not for me. Like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Like, why did I agree to do this, you know? But I feel like if you love it, like, you slowly, like, get back to it. Okay, let's just keep the ball rolling. Let's get back to training. Let's work on what didn't work. Let's keep improving, you know? So fighting is really a metaphor for life, because how many times in life, you know, do you hit a wall or you hit like a bump in the road and you know, instead of quitting at like the first like difficulty or obstacle, like you just have to find a way around it and, you know, find a way to find your reasons to keep going and like just problem solve from there, you know? So I feel like fighting has helped me like see everything else in life as easy. Even though I know like a lot of things in life are not easy, I know that if I can, you know, fight, you know, a grown man in a cage in like my underwear in front of like thousands of drunk people, like I could do anything else, you know, like everything else is like a little bit easier than that, like in my eyes at least.
How was the transition into networking, or how did it come about, like networking from, you know, you did your fighting and now you went into like stunts and movie creation and training, that sort of stuff? How did you network to like for example, you want to talk about how you got in with the Bruce Lee Foundation? I saw you did some cool stuff with them.
So basically, let's see. So after my most recent professional fight, which was 2 years ago, for Fury FC, I ended up losing that fight. I put like a lot into that training camp. I remember I lived in SoCal at the time, but because I wanted to train with my hometown team in Fresno, I like basically like temporarily moved to Fresno. I was staying at Christina's grandma's house, sleeping on a mattress on the floor, but I was like on monk mode, bro. Like every day I would just wake up, go to practice, come back, eat breakfast, take a nap, wake up, train again in the evening. Just training twice a day, no distractions, nothing. Just like living at that house, you know. And then after I lost that fight, I'm like, damn, I put so much into this. Like I feel like, you know, my life is just not going the way I had envisioned, you know. So I kind of feel like I hit another wall right there, right? Every time you lose a fight, you kind of like, I don't know, you rethink your life a little bit, you know. That's just what it is. But I ended up, you know, doing a little psilocybin trip, you know, doing some soul searching, sitting in my backyard, you know, closing my eyes, just thinking about my life, you know, and just, I don't know, just kind of like in retrospect, kind of like reflecting on everything that I've done so far. And I was like, you know what, like I spent my whole life like learning and like studying martial arts, and like I've been a student of it like my whole life, and I love it so much. And I'm like, I just kind of like was meditating on that a little bit. Nothing really came out of that, but I just kind of was stuck on that thought. Like I've been, you know, learning martial arts. Like I've got to find some way to like show the world my talents, or show the world like what I can do. Even if I'm not always successful in like a competition aspect, there's still other ways I could translate it. Like maybe I can coach, maybe I could teach people, maybe I can, you know, I wasn't even thinking really stunts yet, but basically months after that fight, I was on backstage.com, which is like a casting network. I didn't realize that I had a subscription on it. So I subscribed like a year ago on like a deal for like $40 a year or something, because I think there was like a photo shoot in Fresno. I wanted to maybe like get into doing like fashion stuff. So I applied to something, I didn't get it. Fast forward a year later, like it auto renewed for the full price. It was like $200 a year or something. I remember checking my credit card statement. I'm like, damn, what is this, Backstage.com? Because I only used it once. I forgot about it. And it renewed. I'm like, dude, what is this? So I logged on. I was going to cancel it. Then I'm like, you know what? It's $200 a year. Why don't I find one gig on here? If I can, that'll pay off the yearly subscription. Let me just see what I find. I found a commercial for like a high quality lightsaber replica company. They were looking to cast someone as a Jedi and like a Sith. Like 2 guys to fight. They were going to film it, make a commercial out of it. I was like, this sounds really fun. Like I love Star Wars. Like, you know, I remember as a kid, like playing with the toy lightsabers, and like me and my brother would like, you know, do little fight scenes with that. Mm-hmm. So I applied to it. They replied back like right away, just because I was one of the first applicants. They were like, you know what, like you have the right look for it. Like, let's hop on a video call. Let's see, like, you know, let's just talk a little bit. I talked to them. They're like, you know what, I think you're a good fit. So we'll bring you on. So I went and did a 2-day shoot. I remember like at the shoot, I was like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm driving there. I'm like, bro, like why, how did I get myself into this? You know, big time imposter syndrome. I'm driving there. I'm like, bro, I don't know anything about like stunts. I don't know anything about like shooting for film or like commercials. Like this is my first time. I'm green. Like I don't know anything. And I show up, like all the guys are super cool and stuff. But I remember like they actually let me help work on the choreo. So it was just a lot of fun to like be creative, let my creative juices like start flowing and like get into costume and get into character and just kind of like play pretend, you know, like choreograph a scene. Like we shot like 2 full 8-hour days. And at no point during the shoot did I feel like it was work. Like the whole time I'm there, I'm like, dude, this is hella fun. I just feel like I'm just, you know, being creative and like having fun, hanging out with cool people and like getting paid after that. I'm like, damn, like this is a lot of money for me to just like kind of fuck around on camera. It felt like, you know, like it was like, I almost felt guilty, like the amount of money they paid me. Cause it was like a really good gig, but the thing ended up never coming out, unfortunately, cause we shot it in a green screen room. And when you shoot in a green screen room, if they're going to like CGI the background and stuff, you have to put markers on the wall. So, you know, like the relative spacing. And we didn't do that till the second day. We didn't know. So it never came out. But basically after that, I'm like, dude, like, I feel like I could make something out of this. Like I had so much fun doing it. Let me like see how far I can take this. So my oldest aunt on my Chinese side, she's an assistant director. Her name's Sylvia Liu. She did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. She's done a few American films. She did like Iron Man 3. She did Ultraviolet. She did Thor 2. She's done like, she has like a big like portfolio of films that she's done. Mm-hmm. But I kind of text her. It's funny because I would always see her at like family gatherings and stuff and be like, hey, Auntie, like when can I like be in a movie? When can I like do something? She's like, you're a jokester. You're not going to do anything. You could be a comedian if you want. But she's just like roasting me, you know? Yeah. So I finally texted her. I'm like, hey, I call her Daikuma. She's my oldest aunt. So in Chinese, you say like, that's my 5th oldest aunt. I don't know, whatever. Yeah. But I texted her. I'm like, hey, I just did like, you know, a stunt, you know, job or whatever. I would love to like, what do you think I should do if I want to like get into this? So she like kind of told me some stuff to do. She put me into contact with this girl that she worked with on set for, I think it was called American Born Chinese on Disney Plus. It's about like an Asian family that moves to the West or whatever. But I ended up talking to this girl. I went to coffee with her. I was talking to her. I'm like, hey, just trying to network with her. I was just talking to her like, hey, like this is my skill set. I'm just looking for a way to, you know, get into this, you know, this industry. I don't know anything about it. I didn't go to film school or anything. I have no like acting, like no acting training or anything like that. No stunt training. But if you know someone that can like help me out or whatever, like I would just really appreciate it. And fast forward like maybe a few months later, this guy who's a big stunt coordinator in West Hollywood, his name is Stephen Ho. He ended up emailing me. He's like, hey, I heard about you through, you know, blah, blah, blah. He's like, your Instagram looks really impressive, but you don't have any stunt stuff there. This was like towards the tail end of, I think it was 2021 or 2022, I forget. But he's like, you know, like the holidays are busy for me. Let's meet early next year. Let's start training. Maybe you could help train my boys. He has 2 twin boys that like are really into MMA and stuff. Oh, wow. So that's kind of how it got set up. So I think it was basically January 1st of one of the years, the year that I met him. I'm driving to West Hollywood. I meet him. I meet his 2 twin boys. And then I met one of my stunt friends, Gavin. And basically, like, I trained the twins a little bit.
The Twinjas, right?
The Twinjas, yeah, Twinjas official.
Yeah.
And basically, like, I just shared like my MMA knowledge with them, and like in return, like the dad was just teaching me like stunt stuff, like the basics, like how to show a hit, how to fall down, how to do this, how to do that. And even in terms of like how to shoot a fight scene, like what to look for, like what to do, how to edit a fight scene. So he's been like a big time mentor to me, and like for that I'm like super appreciative. Like I feel like he really helped me, you know, like change my life and like go down a different path, you know. So he's like the main connection I had to like a lot of different things, and that's kind of how I got connected with the Bruce Lee Foundation, because he's friends with Shannon Lee, who is the daughter of Bruce Lee. So she has this whole Bruce Lee Foundation where they do like seminars, they do like fundraisers, they do all this stuff. So recently we just got done doing like an after school program for kids for like the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. So I was doing that for the past few months, but that's kind of how I got connected with them. So I'm kind of like one of the coaches. So if they have like, you know, some event coming up, or they are going to do like a program with like, you know, certain Boys and Girls Club, like I'm the guy that like will go in and like coach them and stuff. But it's kind of cool because I feel like for me growing up as a kid, like Bruce Lee was the first one that inspired me and kind of introduced me to martial arts and kind of got me to, you know, chase that path. So for me to like almost give back, like it feels like full circle. Like, yeah. Man, like it just doesn't feel real sometimes. Like to know that I grew up watching this guy, Bruce Lee, like he's my idol. And then I meet his daughter, and like now, like I'm helping teach for the Bruce Lee Foundation, you know. It's just crazy, bro. Like honestly, like I'm just thankful like for that opportunity.
Wow.
But,
you talked a little bit about imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Do you still feel that, and how do you deal with that?
Ooh, I feel it all the time, bro. Honestly, I feel it all the time. I don't know. I feel like when you go down a path and like you're doing something brand new, and especially like for me, like immersing myself in a new industry where everyone's, you know, been working maybe their whole lives to do this, or they go to film school and like everyone's very knowledgeable in their own respective fields. You do feel that because it's like, man, I feel like everyone knows so much more than me. But the thing that I try to remind myself of is that, you know, like my specialty is martial arts, and like not a lot of people like know as much. Like I'm talking about like the whole set. Like if we're on a set, like the reason I'm here is because my expertise is like the martial arts. So I got to like own up to that. You know, you got to like walk the walk and just like talk the talk, honestly. Like it's kind of like Muhammad Ali used to talk about it. You know, you believe you're the best even when you know you're not the best. And so for me, it's like believing that I can ascend to a certain level even if I'm not there yet. You know, just believing that I could get there just through progress. You know, like of course I know I'm not there yet. I might not be there like as soon as I want to be, but you know, eventually with time I'm getting closer and closer and closer to like ascending and going higher and higher, and like just improving. Basically that's what it is. You know, it's a new skill that I have to learn, so it's just about dedicating time to it and getting better at it. But to answer your question, like imposter syndrome, I don't even know. I think action definitely helps like fight imposter syndrome, because I think I feel it most like when I'm not actively like doing stuff to like further maybe my brand or further my skills. Like that's when I feel it the most. But I don't know. I feel like it's just action. You know, action cures a lot of things. You know, like I find that, you know, you're the most depressed like when you're, you know, not doing much. But if you're busy, you're doing this, you're doing that, you don't have time to sit and think about how you feel, you know, like there's no time for feelings. You're just going out and like executing and doing things, you know.
Exactly.
So I feel like that's the best cure for imposter syndrome, is just going out and doing stuff and getting outside your comfort zone, because all of the progress that you want to make is outside of your comfort zone. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, I have to change the subject a little bit, but I know a few stories about you.
Yeah, what?
I want to hear one.
Okay.
I want you to, or can you talk about your Snapchat bag?
Oh my God.
And I want to get into some of the crypto stuff you were doing too.
Okay, bet. Okay. So man, okay, I think this is actually what opened my mind and opened my eyes to content creation. Because before that, like, you know, we grew up like watching YouTube and stuff, and like the biggest like creators and stuff like Ryan Higa. I used to watch like My Chani. I used to watch all these YouTubers and like, man, that seems so fun to make videos with your friends, like funny videos or cool video, whatever the videos are, just to create with your friends and put it out there. And if people like it, cool. If not, like the process is fun regardless. But I remember during COVID, you know, we're locked in the house, we're doing nothing. This is actually 2021 though that it happened. So COVID kind of lasts a long time, right?
It did, yeah.
It kind of lasted a long time. So basically like 2021, I'm at my apartment in Fresno and I'm reading like a Forbes article. I don't know how I came across it, but I read like an article And it was saying like that there was these high school kids, like young kids making like anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 a month posting viral like content to Snapchat, because Snapchat at the time, they were trying to compete with Instagram Reels, with Facebook Reels and TikTok by having their own short form like platform. They called it Snapchat Spotlight. And I was reading about it, and supposedly Snapchat was paying out $1 million a day to the top 100 viral videos. So if you had a top 100 viral video, you would get a share of that $1 million. So that's supposedly what I read. I'm like, man, like I feel like from living in Sacramento, training with Team Alpha Male, training with like one of the best gyms in the world, living in a trap house with all these guys like from different countries, you can only imagine like what a bunch of young 20-year-olds with like a lot of testosterone, like living in a trap house, training with one of the best like MMA gyms in the world, what we were doing like in between practices, you know, like we were just being wild, you know. So I had a lot of videos on my phone of like us doing like funny shit, you know. So I started just posting videos, posting everything in my camera roll, everything. And I did that for maybe a whole month. Every day I'm just trying to find videos. I'm editing videos, just sending videos to Spotlight. Things are getting like 1,000 views, 100 views. Like you have to get like over 100,000 views, I think, in 24 hours to get eligible to get paid anything. Mm-hmm. And I'm just sending videos. And I think like one video hit, and it was like a 4 or 5 second video. And it was honestly like everyone watches it now. And they're like, what? Like that video went viral?
Yeah.
It was one of my friends. We were in the living room. We had a spar bar, which is like it's almost like it's a boxing tool, but basically what it is like you have like a ball that's padded that you punch, but then also there's a rotating like foam arm. So you punch the thing, you punch the arm, and the arm comes around. It's simulating like throwing punches at you.
Yeah.
So you punch the thing, you block it, you could weave under it, but you're just boom, 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 block it, boom. Have you seen them before?
Yeah.
It's just like a little like it's a target you hit, but there's like a bar that like spins.
Yeah, and you hit it, and then it'll spin. You got to block it this way.
Yeah, exactly. So we're messing around with it, and I just recorded one of my friends on it. And maybe it was like a newer product at the time. I don't know what drew people to it. But I posted the video, I remember, and I ended up taking a nap. I woke up and Snapchat notified me. It's like, oh, your snap is on fire. It's been viewed like 10,000 times. I'm like, okay, cool. That's decent. Like, but I know that's nothing, you know, in terms of like virality. 10,000 views is nothing. And then I check it later. I checked it later, and like it was at 100,000, like within like an hour. I'm like, oh shit, I started freaking out. I'm like, bro, am I gonna get paid from this? Like, I kept refreshing it, bro. Every time I refreshed it, it was more views, like 100,000, 105,000, like 106,000. It was just going up like nonstop. And I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna go crazy if I just watch this thing. So I just left it. And within like after 24 hours, I checked it, bro. It had 800,000 views. Like I forgot how many shares, how many likes, but it had almost 1 million views in 24 hours. And I'm like, bro, I have to be paid for this. Like, there's no way. Like, I just got almost 1 million views in 24 hours. Like, there's no way. Bro, it was dead silent. Nothing from Snapchat. Nothing. A week goes by, and then Snapchat, like, you know how, like, during the holidays, you get, like, a Team Snapchat message?
Yeah.
Team Snapchat, like, messages me. They say, congrats, like, your Snapchat Spotlight may be eligible for pay. Make sure your email's up to date, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, it's up to date. Cool. Now what? I waited, like, another week, another 2 weeks. And they said, okay, like pending final, like submissions, final checks, your Snapchat payout should be 35,000 fucking whatever. And I'm like, there's no way, dog. 35,000, like how much tax are they gonna take out of that? Like, I don't know like what fees they would take out of that, you know? And bro, like that's what it said. I was like telling everybody, I'm like, dude, I think I'm gonna get 35 bands from like a video.
Yeah.
From one video. And bro, they didn't pay me. I think that video went viral like the end of January. I didn't get paid till April, but it was down to the penny amount. It was all there. Like Snapchat, like they emailed me. They said, oh, I think their payout system's called like Hyperwallet or something. They're like, oh, you received a payout from Hyperwallet, blah, blah, blah. And I looked at it and it was 2 amounts. It was like one for one day, one for the next day, because it adds up to 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And the whole amount was there. And I remember like after the deposit, like actually went in, I'm like, dude, what the like, what just happened? I really made money posting a video on my phone, and that really opened my eyes to, like, making content and, like, viral stuff and all that. And, like, I got, like, addicted to that. So I kept posting. Nothing else ever, like, hit to, like, get eligible to get paid, but that's kind of how I got started.
Yeah.
And then I took that money, and it was during, you know, the time of, like, the unemployment checks and all that stuff, and I was getting unemployment at the time. So I took that money and like I know a lot of people that were getting that money, getting those checks and just spending it on clothes and getting Gucci bags and shit. I'm like, no, fuck that. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna throw all this money into my stock account. I'm gonna, I'm gonna make the money work for me, because during that time I was like reading a lot of books, the Richest Man in Babylon. I was reading all that stuff. So all my mind was thinking like was entrepreneurship, like making money. How can I make my money, work for me? My money is like my babies. How do I make my babies like work for me, and make more babies?
Yeah.
But I had it in my stock account for a while, and then I learned about the Ethereum or the Ethereum mining. That's what I was mining at the time, and they pay you out in Bitcoin. So I'm like, damn, I got to get some GPUs, make a mining rig. So I took a lot of that money. I bought like 4 RTX like 3090s. I like was researching on YouTube. I built like my own mining rig at home. And then I started like getting balls deep in crypto, bro. Like, cause I've always been big on crypto, especially when I was in college. Like that was my first introduction to it. Back when Bitcoin was popping, when it went from like, I don't know, like 5,000 or something to 20,000, that one pump they had, I caught it from like 6,000 or 7,000 to like 18,000. So like I doubled whatever money I put in there. And I remember just being like hooked, like, damn, like crypto is like the new wave. Like I could see it being the future and like Ethereum and, blockchain technology and all that stuff. So, I got back into crypto and all that stuff. I started, that was during the year of the NFTs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I went crazy on like NFTs and stuff. I ended up losing a lot of the money, but like it was a learning lesson, honestly. Like I learned like how quickly you can make the money, but you can lose it really fast too,
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I got started with like the content creation.
But brother, thank you so much for coming.
Cheers, bro. Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Oh, no problem. My first question, you mentioned Bruce Lee, bro, and I had a similar experience with that. I didn't do all the I didn't do the stunning, but my dad, when I was a little kid, back when I used to live in Mexico, he showed me a bunch of the films and I was hooked, bro.
Yes.
Like I watched a bunch of them. So what's your favorite fighting scene?
Favorite fighting scene from Bruce Lee is probably in the Chinese Connection when he's in that like dojo and he's fighting like when the dudes like circle him, like everyone's wearing the gi and everyone circles him and he has to fight like everybody at once. I think everybody says like, oh, Enter the Dragon, him versus Chuck Norris, but I feel like, I don't know, that's like a super mainstream scene. Like I really like the scene where he's like fighting off hella dudes at once, like in their dojo. Like I feel like that's a dope moment. That's like a superhero moment too. Like he's fighting everybody at once, like, oh shit, this guy's untouchable. He could fight like 10 guys at once. Like that's unheard of. But that's my favorite scene. Chinese Connection, like fighting in the dojo.
Pretty cool. Let's see. Dude, how do you deal with intimidation or anxiety when you're in the cage?
Or leading up to it, yeah.
That's a very interesting thing because fighting is like really psychological. A lot of times it's like you try to get into the head of your opponent first because like Sun Tzu, the art of war, like you understand yourself, you understand your enemy. If I understand that I'm nervous and I'm intimidated, I have anxiety, I know this guy's feeling that too. So if I could kind of like put the energy in his court, like, you're nervous, you're scared, if I could try to alleviate that and give it to him in some way, like I'll try to do that. Like I was really big, like my amateur fights on like psychological warfare. My mom hated it, but like at weigh-ins, like I would say stuff to the guy I'm going to fight, and like that stuff definitely plays a factor, you kind of get in their head a little bit. It's a very like psychological game, much more so than it is physical. Like you could get any guy off the street and train him to fight. You could teach him all the skills you need to fight. Like here's how you throw a jab cross, here's how you stuff a takedown. But to get someone into the mental frame where you can perform in that fight and keep everything together, like that's another thing. Like that's up to the individual to like really master in themselves. But what was your question? Sorry. It was how do you deal with it? How do you deal with it?
Maybe strategically, like is there a certain thing that you do to alleviate that?
Yeah, I think breath work is really good in the locker room. Making sure you get a good warm up. I think you're the most nervous if you don't get a proper warm up and like blow your lungs out and like get your heart rate up. Like if you like, I'm sure like when you guys work out too, if you're ever anxious and you do like a hard cardio workout after you're done, like just the endorphins like that are released after, you're like, like. All my problems like just feel like that much smaller. So like it's the same thing with fighting. Like if I know that I put in that hard work during the training camp, every day that I train hard, like my anxieties kind of go away a little bit, and like when you're in the locker room, you get a hard workout or you get a hard warm up. Like I blow out like a lot of energy. Like my heart rate goes up and I bring it back around. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to perform, but it's hard. There's a lot of different tricks that people do. Like I like to do breath work. I like to just, get a hard warm up in and like get that. They always say like the first sweat. So like when you're in the arena and you're about to fight, you don't want your first sweat, like you don't want to break the first sweat in the fight because your body is not primed then yet. So you want to get that first sweat out in the locker room, then cool down, and then like when you start the fight, like you don't feel like really as nervous. Like your body feels a lot looser. Everything feels like it's gonna like fire like when it needs to, you know.
On that same line, since you've been in high level athletics, what's the healthiest thing you could do to keep yourself fit?
Man, I think the most underrated thing is probably sleep. And like that's something that I try to get better at because I love to stay up like super late. And I think just getting sleep, like having a healthy circadian rhythm, I think that's one of the best things you could do for your health. Everybody knows about, you know, eating like less processed foods, like, you know, lowering inflammation in your body, like not overdoing like sugar, overdoing carbs, eating protein, like, you know, eating vegetables and all that stuff. Everybody knows that, but I think the most important thing is probably sleep. Like that's the most underrated part of like enhancing your performance as an athlete, and even like cognition too, like being like able to remember things, like not having brain fog. Like I feel like just getting good sleep like is key. Like sleep is everything, bro.
You know how like fighter pay is a big like talk right now?
Yeah.
Could you say like how much you made for your first fight versus what you put into it, and then maybe how you supplement that pay by getting sponsors and things like that?
Bro, I've made nothing from fighting, to be honest. My first pro fight, I made 800 to show, 800 to win. So basically, if you win, okay, so here's the thing. Let me break down the math for you. So your fight purse is $800. If you win, you get the 800 bonus. Mm-hmm. Now, you got to also factor in, at the time I had a manager, right? So manager takes 20%, state taxes take 30%. So that adds up to 50%. So right off the bat, you lose 50%. Now you're not factoring in, you know, paying your coaches, paying gym membership fees, paying for like, you know, nutritions and supplements and all that stuff during the training camp. Also, like when I'm doing a fight, like I can't be working, like doing these other things too. So I dedicate myself to the fight only. So I lose out money just on opportunities. Mm-hmm. So I probably have lost money fighting, honestly. Like I haven't made money fighting. Like the money that you make after the fight, like you're just using that to kind of like pay back people usually, you know. Like it's not until you get to like, you know, maybe like you become a top level like Bellator fighter, or if you get into the UFC. I think UFC starting pay is like 10,000. But even those guys, they got to pay 20%. They got to pay 30% to California if they fight in California. Then like paying their coaches, paying everything, paying this, paying that. It's a very expensive like thing, because I feel like for the level of danger in fighting, you don't get paid like a fair amount yet, you know? Mm-hmm. I think we're hopefully going to get there, but right now it's just not there. Like most guys that fight, like they do it for the love of it, or they do it because they want to get to like the upper echelon eventually, but you're not making money like when you're fighting. You make money on ticket sales, but besides that, it's like not too much. I think a lot of the money is like selling merch, like trying to get brand deals, trying to get sponsorships, just things like that to really supplement and help with that.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned some experience with the film industry. What's been your biggest surprise?
Biggest surprise?
Yeah, just on set, like, oh my God, like I didn't expect them to be doing something like that.
Oh man, that's really hard. Biggest surprise. I think sometimes the thing I'm most surprised of is like sometimes how adaptable you have to be on the fly. Like sometimes you have a certain idea in your mind, like they tell you, okay, this is what we're gonna do today. But as like doing stunts, like they'll switch stuff up on you like the day of, and you're like, okay, like, well, we didn't practice this, we didn't rehearse it, but we just got to do it because everyone's here. You know, like everyone's getting paid to be here. Like we just got to make it happen like one way or another. But I would say like the biggest surprise sometimes is just showing up and you practice for like something to happen a certain way, but the director's like, let's do this instead. You're like, okay, well, I guess we're going to do this now. So I can't think of a specific example to give you off the top of my head, but it's a lot of that, like being adaptable, especially in the film industry. Like there's so many moving parts. You just have to be willing to like adapt in order for the final product to be, you know, what the director wants.
Even with us, like since we got into videography and doing films, it's like everything you think, it doesn't work in the video. It's like everybody gives me great ideas of how to make videos, and I'm like, but try editing it. Yeah,
that's the thing, right? So that's the thing. Like a lot of people, if they don't know too much about a camera, they're like, oh, get a shot of this, get a shot of that. It might not look good. Maybe you don't have the lens for it. Like maybe it does look good, but it's going to be like a hassle to edit it. Like for the final like video that someone wants, like, oh, can you do this and have like a fireball doing this and then it explodes? And it's like, that stuff is really hard to do, you know? So like knowing all sides of the equation is like really, really important in like the creative process.
That's been my biggest surprise. It's like, holy shit, now I understand why they have credits after movies. Cause it's like, dude, yeah, you got to pay.
There's a lot of jobs. There's a lot of people that got to do it. Like, yeah, it's insane to think about how many people are involved in making like something that could be like 5 minutes long, 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
You still need a lot of people to come together and like make that magic happen.
I think once you start seeing the editing side of things, you just have a completely different view. But it's good for the videographers and photographers to see
you watching
all
me?
that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I'm like,
I see your guys' stories. Yeah, you guys are grinding late at night. You know, it takes hours to edit stuff, and like in film they say you gotta like kill your babies because like, you know, your film, like your timeline, like your editing timeline is your baby, right? Like you love it, like, oh, it looks good this way, but okay, they want 30 seconds and you have 5 minutes right now. So you got to just be killing stuff, take it down. You might be down to 45 seconds. You're like, dude, I don't know what else to cut out. And that's the hardest part. Like really like making the final product what they want or what you want, but making it like concise and short and like, yeah, it's just hard
to hold people's attention.
To hold people's attention. And there's like, I mean, like if you look at 1 30-second video and you have all these clips and you edit it a certain way, there's 10 different ways you could have done it. And you can't like, it's hard because you fall in love with like the vision you have in your mind, but sometimes you just have to change it. And like, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, 100%.
It's difficult, bro. It's difficult.
Yeah.
Next question.
All right, next question. Yeah. Let's hear it. Next question.
You mentioned something that's very relatable to me.
Yeah.
Which is money not making you happy.
Yeah.
That hit me like a wall because my whole life as a youngster, I thought like, oh, all I need is to have that sort of a life. And
yes.
When I came to that sort of life where I could buy pretty much anything, go anywhere, it was like, man, like it kind of really sucks that it's like I thought that would make me happy, so I had to reconfigure my life. So what does success mean to you?
Success to me, that's a really good question. Success to me just means that, you know, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm doing something that I'm good at, something that I can be paid for. The people around me love me still. And, you know, I have the time to do the things I want to do. Like, that's success to me. Success to me is not, you know, having like the car, having tons of money and stuff like that. To me, it's just having the freedom, number one, to do what I want to do. And if I do what I want to do, I'm going to chase my passions. I'm going to chase things that make me happy. I'm going to chase things that make me feel like my soul is like fulfilled, you know, because how many like people do you know that are in like corporate jobs, like, you know, they kind of lose their soul, they get miserable, and then when you're miserable, you're going to drown yourself in, you know, like pleasures, you know. So I feel like that's a downward spiral, like doing stuff like that. Like, okay, I'm making all this money, but I'm not happy, so I'm going to spend money. That's going to make me feel better. I'm going to buy clothes, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy that, I'm going to go on vacations. Like, I think if you're doing what you want to do, it doesn't really matter how much money you're making. If you're making enough money to survive, but you're doing what you truly want to do, like that's what I find like makes me happiest, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it is.
I get tired of telling people, like, I meet a lot of very wealthy people in my industry, and it's like a lot of them, they work so hard to be where they're at that once they get there and they have the same realization, they get even a little bit more depressed, or they just don't look happy, and it's so sad to see, because it's like, man, you did so much and you're 40 and 50 now, and you're back to step one. What makes me happy?
I think the biggest thing too is like, you know, there's always going to be a taller mountain to climb. And like, that's something I've realized too, is like, I think the happiest people are going to, you know, you're going to climb that mountain, but then once you're there, like you got to set a new goal. You got to refocus and like work on something else. And just, I feel like always like chasing things or like trying to improve at certain things in life. I think progress is like what makes people happy too, because if you're at a job where you just show up, clock in, clock out, make your money, if you're not like getting better at a skill, or like it's not something you love, like that's when you're miserable. But like, I feel like I'm happiest when like I can put my time into like learning different things, like learning how to video edit, like learning martial arts, like learning like Chinese, like learning how to speak a different language, like reading a book. Like if I can learn more and like be a student, like that's when I'm happiest, you know. Like if I feel like I'm making progress and like growing my mind, challenging my body, like that's when I'm happiest.
Yeah.
Very well.
Yeah.
I love the answer.
What do you think about like you're a family man?
Yeah. Hell
right?
yeah.
And how important do you think it is having the right partner.
Yes.
And then your kids coming into play with that. How do you think that's altered your outlook?
That's super important because you know what? Like, I have a lot of friends that are fighters and like they maybe don't have the best partner, the most supportive partner, or like they're toxic or whatever. And like when you're in a training camp, like getting ready for a fight, getting ready to put your life on the line, the last thing you want to worry about is like if your partner's like overly needy or this or that or like not supportive 100%. I feel like with the right partner, you can go far. Like if you want to, they say, what's the saying? If you want to go fast, like go by yourself, but if you want to go far, like you got to go with somebody, you know? So I feel like having the right partner is important. I heard this quote from Patrick Bet David once, and he said, you know, like if you have someone that you know truly loves you, like unconditionally, no matter what happens, it's almost like you're not risking anything. You have nothing to lose because if you go out and you try to achieve something, but maybe you fail, okay, people are going to love me no matter what. Because I think a lot of people nowadays, you're going to go out and you want to accomplish things because you want to become somebody so that people love you because maybe you feel like you're not loved already. But if you know you're already loved, it's like, I have nothing to lose. Like, I'm just going to go out and do what I want to do. And no matter what, I have nothing to lose, you know? Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's a big thing to think about, you know? If you know you have people that love you, maybe it's not a partner. Maybe it's like your family members, your parents. If you know they love you, then you're willing to take those risks because you know it's worth it.
Yeah, 100%. No, yeah. I love it, man. So what can we see next from you?
That's a good question, bro. Shoot, I don't know. I don't know how much I can say, but I'm waiting to hear back about a potential fitness reality show that I would either be a reoccurring guest on. If not, then I'd be a contestant. Right now, I don't know how much I can talk about, but there's a show coming out that is gonna be on Prime Video, I think. Basically, it's going to be kind of like about like a tournament, almost like Mortal Kombat, but it's going to be like different fighters like coming together, trying to challenge and trying to like, I don't know how much I can say about it, but there's a couple things like in the works right now. I also, you know, want to get back into fighting. It's been 2 years since I fought. I miss it dearly. Like, again, not for the money, but just for my soul, like doing something that's like competitive, doing something that's, you know, chaotic and it takes all of my attention and focus. You know, I'm a chaotic person, so I love doing things that are like crazy and like dangerous and like that are gonna really like challenge me as a person and like things that are gonna scare me. I feel like I love doing things that scare me because I don't know. It's just I'm bored if I'm not like challenged or scared. You know.
Yeah, that's the thrill of life, right?
Yeah, there. That's the thrill, bro. That's the thrill.
Well, we'll keep you on our timeline.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And then so last question, bro. So we can wrap it up
for sure.
What would you say is your why?
My why. That's pretty easy. I would say my why is like I want to get to a place where I can take care of everybody that supported me, you know, like my mom helping me out like all these years and stuff and like supporting my dream and like believing in me too. Like that's the biggest thing for me because like I think for a period of time like I felt like people didn't really like want me to do what I'm doing, you know, and they would always question me and like just that pressure like would just kind of make me frustrated. Like I feel like I was like it was me against the world, you know. And like now that people are starting to come around, like I feel like I have that love, you know, I have that love. But my why is I want to get to a place where I can take care of everybody, take care of my whole family. Nobody has to work. Nobody has to do anything that they don't want to do. You know, you can, you know, do this or do that if you want to for money, but you're not going to really need to, you know. I want to get to like where you're at, you know, take care of your mom and stuff. I think that's like the most like noble thing like a son can do, you know, take care of his whole family, you know. So that's my why. I want to get to a place where I can do that. I can support everybody. I don't want any of my kids. I don't want my girl. I don't want anybody working, bro. I want everybody just to chill and do what they want to do and enjoy life with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
Brother,
yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you guys for having me, bro. It was super, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was dope. We went to the range before this, shot some guns. Bro, we had a good ass time.
When you were talking about like never working and that sort of thing, I'm like, what a dope ass day we had today. We went to the range, we shot some guns.
We didn't work.
You know?
We shot content like shooting guns and stuff.
Exactly.
Shot both ways. Content
we shot both ways. We shot two things, you know? So, like that's the goal, you know, like to get to a place where you guys are doing something that you enjoy doing and like you feel like you're not working, but you're getting paid. So it's like, I don't know, that's a double whammy for me.
Yeah, 100%. Laying down that foundation.
Laying down that foundation first, bro. That's important. Man. That's what's important.
100%, man. Well, thanks again, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for watching.
Guys.
Peace.